Welcome back to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Knox, and joining me now is freshman Representative Donna Veach. She represents Berlin and Southington, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening up in Hartford, including her bill that she co-sponsored earlier this year to increase public safety. Representative Veach, welcome to Talk of the Town.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate the chance to get to know you here a little bit. Now, you took over for the former Speaker of the House, Representative Simowitz, correct?
I have, and yes, I did. Thank you.
Congratulations on that. It's kind of a big shift there in your district, isn't it?
Just a tad. I believe Joe had this seat for about 18 years, so I am actually honored and thrilled that I was able to acquire it. Let's put it that way.
And what would you say was the reason why your district went from continuing to put someone like Speaker Simowitz, who I think his ideologies and yours are really quite opposing? What would you say was the reason why the voters of your district went in a different direction?
Well, I do believe that people were looking for a change. They wanted things to be whipped up, if you will. Hartford needed a new voice, and they chose me. I'm very honored and privileged to be sitting in this seat, and I do believe that I can make a difference.
Is this your first foray into politics?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't consider myself a typical politician. It's not something I went to school for, although my husband will tell you that I've been being politics to some extent. I would say that I am a counselor in the town of Berlin and have been for the past 2 years. And prior to that, I really didn't have any political aspirations, but I just couldn't sit back, and being the involved person that I am within the community, thought that it was time for me to fight the fight, if you will. Hopefully see some changes and make some things happen. Couldn't sit on my hands and just watch things diminish like they have been, in my opinion.
So when you first got to office, I mean, first of all, your first term here, a very strange term, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Everyone says this is not the norm, to say the least. Everything has been Zoom, and it has been it's taken over everything, whether it was a vote, a committee meeting, a caucus. Everything has been done remotely up until recently. And it's made it very difficult, especially for somebody that's new to this and coming on board and trying to learn the ropes. And there is a learning curve regardless. So it has not been easy. I am happy to say that we are in session and in-house now, face-to-face. I'm a people person, so working remotely was not the easiest for me. I like to be in the thick of it. We like to rub elbows face-to-face. Well, we're almost face-to-face. We still have to wear our masks, over at the Capitol until the first week in June, but at least we're in person. So I am very happy about that.
Yeah, and I always like talking with someone who's this is their first time in politics, and they have to get into the mix and have to deal with so many, first of all, learning the rules of the road, but then learning some of the personalities and the way things work. Were you surprised when you got there? I mean, was anything sort of different than what you expected looking out in from the outside initially?
See, I don't know what the norm is. I'm hoping that I'll be able to experience that next year. But from what I'm told, this is nothing like it usually is. It's very quiet. The lobbyists aren't here. The public isn't able to come in. So to me, of course, being a newbie, I didn't really know what to expect. You talk to this person, you talk to that. And they give you their input and their insight. But until I really was able to get in here and kind of feel the vibe, if you will, I didn't know what to expect. But I was willing to take on the challenge.
I've talked to someone who held office for a little while, and one of the things I was told was that they were surprised by just how partisan it is in Hartford.
Well, it certainly isn't bipartisan. I have to tell you that. Unfortunately, they rule the roost. They have the votes. They know it. We send all kinds of amendments to the floor, to the bills that we're looking to get through to make better, to make, fair, if you will. and what we think is the right thing to do, and for us to be able to vote on some of those bills, and they just don't want to know anything about it. I don't think I've seen a single amendment of great magnitude get passed along in a bipartisan way. There's definitely, in my opinion, no bipartisanship at all.
So does that frustrate you, or does that make you want to fight even harder?
Well, I would say a little bit of both. It certainly does frustrate me because you feel like no matter what you say, they just don't vote that way, and it is frustrating. But certainly, in my opinion, it does make you want to fight a little harder.
Well, I mean, I think that's all. You have two options here, and one is giving up, and one is fighting. So giving up to me would seem to be the wrong choice.
I'm a tough Italian, and it's not how I was raised. I am a fighter, so I will continue to fight and try to do what I can possibly do for the communities that I represent.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. We need more people like you then.
Thank you.
You proposed a bill back in February called HB 5473, or you were the co-sponsor of a bill about juvenile auto theft and maybe finding some ways to reduce or eliminate that. How is that bill being received, and is it still an active discussion going on over that bill?
Well, it hasn't really moved anywhere. Okay, when they don't want to talk about it, they don't move things. I co-sponsored it. As you know, there's been a rash of juvenile offenders, if you will, throughout the whole state of Connecticut. I don't think that there's really a community that is not. I have to take a vote. I apologize. Can you bear with me 1 second?
Certainly, do what you have to do. I'll put you on hold, and I'll run a couple of spots or something. 1
second. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I just did it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm getting paged on the other line, and I'm actually at my remote console in my office, and then I'll head over to the Capitol when we're finished. So to get back to that bill, things are, how do I say, it's a little quieter than it has been over the past few months, and I'm really not sure what to attribute to the juvenile rash of theft to the vehicles. There's a lot of watches, if you will. Neighborhood people have gotten together. They're working with the local police officers, and I think some of that is definitely making a difference. There's an uptick in terms of the amount of the police officers that are out there and cruising, and they put on some more manpower, manning driving in the neighborhoods, etc. And I think that might attribute to a little bit less of the amount that it has happened. It hasn't disappeared. I've even been told that perhaps some of the people that were head of these rings may be in jail. And obviously, without leadership, some of that, drops off as well. I don't know where it's going to go because, like I said, when you start talking about accountability, they don't want to hear it. And when I say they, I mean the other side. The Dems are just, and there is no accountability. We need to do something, and I'm hoping that this bill will get pushed along, but very hard to tell what we'll see over the next, 3 weeks, if you will.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that in the last hour about, June 9th is rapidly approaching here, so there's not a lot of time to really kind of get deeply into a lot of topics. But I think this is one that really needs to be taken up and discussed because it's not just that the cars are being stolen, it's that people are putting other people's lives at risk. They're putting their own lives at risk. They're putting the police officers' lives at risk. There's just all kinds of ancillary damage being caused here. And what's concerning to me is this almost revolving door we seem to have in our judicial system. That, when they picked some of these kids up, we read stories in the paper about it, and it's like, well, they've been arrested 17 times before for stealing cars. It's like 17 times.
Yeah, it really, really is a shame, and something has to be done. My husband is a police officer in Berlin, actually, and it's awful. When we moved to the community, over 30 years ago, I left my doors unlocked. I left my keys in the car. I wouldn't even dream of doing anything like that now. It's scary. It really is scary, and coming home at night, you're worried, you're concerned. the communities as safe as you would like to think they are. No one is safe anywhere, and these juveniles need to be accountable. And if they know they can get away with it and they can't be chased, and we haven't given the police officers the tools that they have had in the past to apprehend these, juveniles or these, offenders, if you will, whether they're juvenile or not, they're going to continue to do what they've been doing because they know there are no consequences. Like anything, if there's no consequence, you're going to continue to do it. So I hope that legislation like this will get through and more instead of less. We need to let our police officers do what we've hired them to do, and they are good at what they do. That's how I feel about it.
And, okay, so your husband's a police officer. He must be just incredibly frustrated over the fact that, they do this hard work. They go out there every day. They're putting their lives at risk. They do what they're asked to do to protect society, and then they see the people that they catch just being given a slap on the wrist at most and turned right back out on the streets. That's got to be incredibly frustrating to him. How does he continue to do his job?
Well, I'll tell you, like me, he's a fighter, and he will continue to do his job until he decides to retire. But it's horrible. It is very, very, very discouraging. I'm fearful that the policing business, if you will see a decline. We've made it so that it's not the kind of occupation that the young kids want to get into because you can't do what you are trained and hired to do. Your hands are tied. It's awful. It is very, very discouraging. But we have a great force both in Berlin and Southington, and I'm sure that they will continue to fight the fight.
Now, kind of shifting gears here a little bit, I was talking this morning with my producer about some of this unbelievable fiscal irresponsibility that occurs up in Hartford, things that you and I could not get away with in our personal life and in our homes. We would probably be arrested if we tried to get away with some of the things that they do up in Hartford. But are you shocked at just how irresponsible they are when it comes to fiscal policy?
I find it absolutely amazing that they have been allowed to get away with it, what they've been allowed to get away with. The transparency, it's pretty non-existent. And in terms of being fiscally responsible, they don't even know what that means. It's awful. Instead of, cutting back and making changes and making do, we're looking to tax the people more. And if there's any kind of tax they can think of to tack on, to do, they're doing it. It's horrible. It really, really is horrible. And you're right. It's criminal. It's actually criminal. They're making it so that this state, a beautiful state that I was born and raised in, that I want to be able to retire and enjoy my grandchildren, my children that are here, you're not going to be able to do that because you won't be able to afford to live here. The cost is through the roof. Like everybody else knows, whether they admit it or not, people are not staying here to retire. They can't afford to, let alone attract young people and new organizations and companies to come in to make this their home state in order to offer jobs, etc. Instead of doing that, we're, adding to what you can get for your unemployment check on a weekly basis and, having sign-on bonuses to encourage people to take jobs. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Let's use that money for things that we should be using that money for.
Yeah, one of the frustrations I have is I've heard so much about how they're trying to create new programs with this federal relief money that eventually the relief money is going to run out, but the program will still exist, which means we are going to have to fund it ourselves. This is it's the definition of insanity here.
You're absolutely right. I mean, for us to be taking on something that we cannot fiscally be able to do down the road is ridiculous. We should be utilizing those monies and those funds for things that we know we don't necessarily have to maintain down the road. Rethink it. Let's be responsible. Let's try to get on board and do the right thing for a change.
Well, and I'm reminded of, when we made these wonderfully lucrative deals with the state employees and the union that, seem to be never ending. And we see the damage that they're doing to the state. We see the damage that they're doing to UConn and UConn Health and so many other aspects of the state, this massive unfunded liability that we're just never going to be able to get under control. And so we all know that that was a bad decision made because it was in good times and they thought the good times were never going to end. And so they were just giving away the farm. We seem to just not be learning from history and doing the same thing all over again, putting these programs in place, creating massive entitlements and agencies that we know we can't afford. But just because we have this one-time only windfall, well, now's a great time to set this up. But what happens a couple of years down the road when we can't afford that, just like we can't afford the pensions?
You're absolutely right. I mean, all it does is perpetuate a problem that is clearly evident and going to get worse. Let's take those extra funds and let's address things that we should be addressing. If you make yourself responsible and you pay down debt and you eliminate things that you don't necessarily need, and you can reduce taxes or hold taxes at the line, and don't make promises that you're not going to keep because you need the votes and you want the votes and you want to continue to hold the stranglehold, if you will. It's ridiculous. It really is.
So you also sit on the education committee?
I do.
Okay. Have there been any discussions about maybe changing the way we provide education here in the state of Connecticut in the wake of COVID?
Well, we are conversing about that, and there's a couple things that are on the table. I know that, we hate to say got caught with our pants down with this COVID scenario, but nobody anticipated what we were going to experience. And I think that we need to have a uniform type of plan put together, and I think we are working in that direction.
One of the things that I've heard being discussed is maybe going from going to a 12-month school year. Is that been something that has been debated, or has that been tabled?
Probably tabled. We really have not talked about a 12-month a year educational program, not at this point in time. Okay.
Well, Representative Veach, it's been a pleasure to get to know you, and it sounds like you've got another fighter in the state house, which is really, really, I'm really heartened to hear that. I think we need more people like yourself who are not going to become frustrated and not just going to let yourself get rolled over, but push back as hard as you can. So we need more.
I certainly intend to, and like I said, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for your support.
And thank you very much for your time here. I know it's quite a busy time for you, so I want to thank you for taking time out of your day speaking with us. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Steve. You have a great day now.
You too. Take care, Representative Veach.